I think the first thing that we should say again is that this is not a discussion, because I had some confusion on Twitter again today about this. And this is probably the most confusing thing to people who are not following this, that this is not a conversation about what WotC or Hasbro does with the D&D brand or anything that it considers its intellectual property, what it calls its product identity, has always called its product identity. This is not about that. This is about material that was licensed under an open license, built upon the philosophy of open source software and the open licensing of software, that was done here in the gaming community. There was material that was released as open content by Wizards of the Coast under an open license that we believe here is perpetual, irrevocable, cannot be deauthorized. I mean, this is an open license. And now Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast is trying to claw that back and say that that's not true. An open license is not what it actually is. Mm-hmm. That license clearly defined what is the D&D brand, the D&D trademark. And for instance, we can even look at that with like the World of Ataltus books. Mm-hmm. You do not see uses the open content here, but there is nothing that has the Dungeons and Dragons trademark on this or anything that they own.
Right.
Right, Mark?
Can't even say the words Dungeons and Dragons in it. Right.
Correct. Now, we as a community have been using like a 5e logo, which everybody has kind of a different one. But if you see 5e, mm-hmm. then that means that we're compatible. Okay, so that's not what this is about. This is about the heart of open source licensing and what is released as open source. Do you have comments on that before we go forward, Mark?
No.
As a publisher who has used that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm also in the software industry, so I think a lot about this. I do think that, what's unfortunate is that we're in a position where Hasbro is testing what they can do with this license. And the thing that makes it especially complicated is that the final test might only end up in court, right? And that's something that is a pretty frightening prospect for most folks who are, like a small game producer with 4 people working out of their basements, right? And so I think that in a sense, what we're sort of facing here is what happens when someone tests those open licenses and questions their validity. And that's what we're running into.
William Atkins says there's no legal mechanism to deauthorize the OGL. 1.0a deauthorize is not even a legal term. And that's what Bob Tarantino was saying. And I clipped that out, and we may watch that later. But he said, he actually used the phrase gobbledygook. He said that's not something that is a legal term that is applied to something like, I'm going to deauthorize this license, this contract. That's not a thing. So that is, to me, one of the lines that we have drawn early on, and I think that has to continue. So yes, that's it. And in that Bob Tarantino, if you look up gobbledygook on my channel, you'll find it. But okay, because that's very important, and we may run that clip if we need to.